Orphan Local Radio. In 1978, RT had just introduced their second television channel, RT2. It started with a live broadcast from the Cork Opera House of a variety show, the show showing its first film, the Steve McQueen classic Bullet. John Tracy had won the World Cross Country Championships in Glasgow, and Johnny Giles had enough of managing the Republic. The country was teetering on the edge of an employment abyss, and the money was certainly too tight to mention. But in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. It was in this climate that two young men laid the foundation to an unlikely success story that stands strong almost 35 years after those first bricks were put in place. Two pioneers of pirate that started the whole ball rolling and watched as it gathered pace, offered life to its rivals and overcame many obstacles to produce a radio station that still resonates over 4 decades later. WLR's history began on 23rd of June 1978 with its first live broadcast. There was a concept for a local radio station that would broadcast on the Cork Road to Cheek Point everywhere. In between was hatched several years earlier by two young mavericks whose imaginations knew no bounds. Rick Whelan and Egidio Gianni were good friends sitting by the dock of the bay, just wasting time as the swinging 60s gave way to the sexually liberated 70s. Well, liberated elsewhere, we still have ballrooms of romance and a Catholic state. Both shared a love of radio. Whelan himself was one of a growing number of Irishmen leaving the Emerald Isle in search of greener pastures. Ireland was essentially a third world country. Work had been plentiful through the swinging 60s had long gone. The country was about to plunge into a recession, and people were told to tighten their belts by a government leader who would go down in infamy rather than importance. Rick spent some time in England, while Eggio stayed by the shore. When they teamed up in 1977, their goal was clearer and more focused. With the first seat sown, the dynamic duo approached Jim Toner at his shop in Morgan Street. Still part of the landscape some 34 years on, and run by Jim's son. See if they could really start the ball rolling. Gianni, being the technical wizard he was then able to take the transmitter apart, find how it was built, and then build more transmitters, which he sold to various pirate radio stations. Crucial to the plan was finding a high area where these pioneers could put their masts. Thankfully, this was found on a patch of land on Carrickpirish Hill that belonged to Rick Whelan's father. Overlooking housing estates like Hillview, it proved perfect. Now all they had to do was get a signal and go on air. Testing of the transmitter started. It was a long drawn-out process. Up in the last weekend of June 1978, the transmitter and the area were working together for the first time. Then a signal was found on 252 medium wave. To test the range of the signal, Rick asked Val Flynn, a local policeman, to drive in the passage with the radio in tow, hoping the signal would stay. It did, and that was it. For the studio, the lads, now joined by Jackie O'Keefe, used Rick's garage. The first console was made out the side of a wardrobe that they cut holes into for the switches and controls. There was no playlist, guest or telephone. Such humble beginnings for humble men. The 23rd of June, broadcast in 1978, brought the pirate station War for Local Radio to a listening public for the first time. In Ireland and the UK, Travolta and Newton-John topped the charts with You're the One That I Want. While across the pond, Andy Gibb was shadow dancing his way to a month-long stay on top of the Billboard charts. Back at home, a packet of Benson and Hedges would set you back 43 pence, and a packet of cornflakes was 27 pence. The station played from 10 in the morning until 6 in the evening. Response at first is very encouraging, but there's one small problem. With no telephone at first, and an eager listenership wanted to get under the act, a system was designed to deal with requests. Jackie O'Keefe's mother ran Casket Fabrics in town, and the shop was used as a base for people to drop their requests into. Like clockwork, there would be a bin line or bag of requests, something two, at the end of the day, for Jackie to bring out to the station. Soon WLR would add more fledgling disc jockeys to their roster in the station's embryonic stage. Pat Harlan, Tom Milan, Jeff Harris and Ray O'Brien joined Jackie O'Keefe and Rick Whelan at the world's bed. For his all-important records, the station looked to Neil Bullock, owner of 50 Records in Lisdown. The telecommunications problem was an issue at first for the station. There may be 4 billion mobile phones currently on this planet, and practically every house has at least one phone. Back in 1978, things were a bit different. The local phone box in the corner was your only outlet and became a hub of activity, as well as a handy meeting place for the opposite sex. Many of the time I used the phone box opposite the grotto in Beverly Drive as a meeting place to arrange a date. I was from Larcher, but I think that was the nearest phone. There were Tommy O'Keefe would soon join WLR, offer the station a unique solution to the problem. Starting the station was an achievement in itself, but to keep themselves on air, revenue was needed. The excitement of a local radio station was making an immediate impact, and one well-known business was forced to take the plunge. Tom Murphy. With some advertising revenue now coming in, but restricted by Whelan's garage, the crew moved to a gate lodge just down the road, and now started to get more structured. WLR introduces news bulletins, Helen O'Brien would become the station's first female newsreader, and Jonathan Torrey was brought in to run advertising department. A pivotal moment in the fortune of the station would then arrive in the shape of Rick Whelan's younger brother Des. With the station now receiving close to 300 calls during its broadcasting hours, Des Whelan's introduction as full-time manager became a necessity to oversee the smooth running of the station. Not that the man didn't like to rock out. Word spread like wildfire. The public response to the station was staggering, so it was only natural after a while that the hours on air were extended. By October 78, less than a month on air, you could have your 27 pack of cornflakes or your 43 pence cents in hedges at breakfast time, and listen to the lads out in the lodge at WLR started at 8 p.m. Outside the studio, the station started its very own roadshow in the Ardrey Hotel every Sunday night, which proved huge success. I remember the unique combination of getting a chair, then a chair over my back almost simultaneously, and I think every teenager from St. Saviour's to St. Paul's managed at least one visit to Cracker's Roadshow. The program content broadened and more community-based programs were added. There was a huge youth club movement in the city, and a hospital request program at station's first sports slot came in. The sports show proved extremely popular, and was funded by Matt Keane and his sidekick Pat Haberlin. Keane was writing for the Warford Post at the time, gaining his first break in radio, courtesy of Des Whelan, and possibly the world's only Neil Sedaka tribute band. That's right, a Neil Sedaka tribute band. Making the show the co's main agitator was Conor Halpin, who added a comedic element to everything he did on the show. Being a legal radio pirate station meant these mavericks among men were always running the risk of clashing with the authorities. It was almost inevitable at the time. Just when things were sailing along nicely, those meetings when the P&T paid a visit. The Post and Telegraph Department were responsible at the time for making sure WLR or any other legal pirate station felt their wrath once in a while. These laws weren't as stringent as in the late 80s, and Mr. Ray Burke of all people decided the game was up for over 74 pirates nationwide. It didn't mean the pirates got off scot-free. Nor would they arrive, confiscate the transmitter and drive off. The department ran from 1924 up until 1984, when it was replaced by the newly created Office of Minister for Communications. On Thursday, November 28, 1978, the P&T rated WLR for the first time. End of part 1. Part 2 to come very soon. Radio Blaa Blaa, audio com, orderly reading, available.